Hello, everyone. I'm Leslie Rohde, and welcome to Ask the Lawyers. Over the last 7 months, we've seen two terrible aircraft crashes that have killed close to 350 people and raised many questions about aircraft safety. The aircraft involved the Boeing 737 MAX 8. My guest today is aviation attorney Mike Eidson, whose law firm Coulson Hicks Eidson has litigated dozens of international airplane crashes, accidents like this, against some major corporations like Boeing. You're located there in the Miami area, but as we mentioned, you have handled international cases. Welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me today.
I want to make sure and kind of tell everyone what are some of the experiences your firm has had in handling some of these international cases.
Our firm has been involved in international aviation cases for 40 years. We've been involved in international accidents for 40 years. We handle cases all over the world.
We heard about this automated flight control system. Tell us more about that and how that fits into these accidents.
Okay, in addition, I'd like to say we've also litigated against Lion Air. So we're familiar with that. We've been involved in cases before in Indonesia, Thailand, and a lot of different places in the Far East. This just happens to involve these two accidents, one that happened in October, I think it was October 29, 2018, to Lion Air, and the one that happened to Ethiopian Airlines in March, almost exactly the same. And it does involve the automated flight control system. This airplane, the Boeing 737 design, goes back to the 60s. They used to call it the baby Boeing. And this airplane is, I think they've sold 5,000 versions, 5,000 of these airplanes over the years. They've changed it several times. The most recent change here was in 2017. They launched this in 2011. It's called the 737 MAX 8. And they started selling it in late 2016, 2017. One of the changes in this airplane was larger, heavier engines. And they put these engines in a different place. And as a result of that, they designed a new automated flight control system. And this helps the pilots control the plane through computers that are part of the airplane. This airplane, they found out because when they changed the engines to a different location, Boeing found out that it had a tendency to nose up on takeoff, and that can cause a stall. So we believe that both of these crashes were caused by an effective anti-stall system. Rather than going into all the little details, what happened was erroneous information was sent from something called an angle of attack sensor, which is located on the front of the airplane, back to something called the MCAS system, which translated that and made a mistake. Essentially, the pilots don't control this, it's automatic. And it put in steering inputs that caused the nose to go down, drastically down. The pilots were not able to correct this, even though they were following all of the instructions that were given to them, both in the first accident and in the second accident. And as a result of not being able to control it, at the time that this finally happened, they were at 14,000 feet at 565 miles an hour. It went straight into the ground. Shortly after they left the airport, about 5 minutes after they left the Addis Ababa airport, killing everybody on board.
Terrible, terrible. Well, you talk about the design then of the aircraft and the changes made. What about the training for the pilots?
Well, the pilots weren't really trained properly to anticipate this. Training and going into simulators, which is where the training is done, is expensive. We believe that Boeing rushed this airplane and didn't go through that process. And since this was an airplane that had been changed, they made the argument to the FAA to allow them to actually decide how to certify this airplane and whether or not the pilots needed training in this. These pilots really didn't understand this MCAS and this angle of attack sensor and really what this meant. And even though they did what they were supposed to do and what they were told to do, they were unable to deal with this catastrophic failure of their automated flight control system, resulting in the accident. So Boeing in this case is liable for a number of reasons. We could sit here and have a conversation for 10, 15 minutes talking about each one of the things that we believe that they did that was negligent, careless. Actually, some of these things are outrageous to me that directly resulted in the airplane crash in both of these cases.
We've heard some of the victims of that crash, the recent crash, the one in March, are from the U.S. Citizens. And what about surviving family members? Knowing that that's an international crash, can surviving family members here sue when this happens in another country, when the plane crashes?
Well, every country has some sort of wrongful death act, some sort of right that people who were survivors have to bring a lawsuit to recover damages for the loss of their loved one. Everyone that I've seen has some sort of remedy for that. The United States, each one of our states has a different wrongful death act. We're going to bring this case. We've already brought this case actually in Chicago, where Boeing has their headquarters. So a lot of the decisions that were wrong here, that were negligent, were made out of their headquarters in Chicago. Some of them were made in Seattle. That's where the planes used to be manufactured. When they came out in the 60s, that's where they manufactured all of the 737. What they call the angle of attack sensor that failed in this case, it was sending erroneous information to the MCAS, was manufactured, we believe, in Minnesota by a company called Rosemont. So there are companies all over the country who are making decisions, but the biggest that had something to do with this accident, but the biggest decisions were made in Cook County, where Boeing has their headquarters.
And what about Boeing being the target of some lawsuits from people, other international citizens who are not, people who are not from the U.S.?
International citizens have the right to bring a lawsuit in the United States at the headquarters of the company that made a product that was defective and unreasonably dangerous that caused an accident outside the United States. And we have handled those cases many times. The ones that I was telling you about earlier, we had one in Phuket, Thailand that we've handled. We've handled a lot of cases against Boeing and other airlines, other airplane manufacturers over the years, for people outside the United States in this country. So you always have the right to sue a manufacturer at its principal place of doing business, which in this case is Cook County, Illinois.
Anything else, Mike, you want to tell us about that people need to understand about some of these legal cases and cases involving these airplane accidents?
I would say that there are not that many law firms in the country, in the world, that handle these cases on a regular basis. We're one of those law firms. I can think of probably 10 that I would want to represent me. And if I was involved in something like that, I would want our law firm to represent me.
All right, Mike, thank you very much for all of that and all of your information and experience you bring to help us understand what's going on in these international airline cases.
Thank you very much for having me on the program today.
We want to thank all of you for watching this edition of Ask the Lawyers. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so you can see more of these question and answer periods and learn more about the legal questions. Thank you all for watching. I'm Leslie Rohde for AskTheLawyers.com, where you can choose a lawyer that lawyers choose.